And we are back. I thought you were going to do Jar Jar, and you didn't, Brian.
The clip failed.
The clip failed.
Yeah, it was all my fault.
See? The clip didn't fail. It's the operator that failed. Welcome back to the final Behind the Lens for 2016. When we next see you and you hear us on January the 9th, because I'm taking a break next week, especially since all the publicists and talent are like goofing off for the first day of the new year. When we are back on the 9th, that will kick off our 3rd year of Behind the Lens. But we are going out 2016 with an absolute bang with song and sound. And right here for the hour with me is the fabulous sound editor, mixer, guru of Atmos, Tim HOOGENAKKER. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And, of course, also joining us today, who'll be calling in, is 6-time Grammy Award-winning music producer and composer, Harvey Mason Jr. So, it's all about song and sound today. So, I am so thrilled to have you here, Tim.
Thank you.
You know, you work with the formidable Formosa group.
I do. Yep. I've been with them. So the Formosa group was formed in around 2013.
Yeah.
So I've been with them since 2014. So 2 years now.
Yeah.
Coming up on 3. So we're it's growing well.
Well, one of your compatriots, Mr. Oscar winner Mark Mangini was here.
Yes.
On Halloween.
Yes.
Scott Hecker was here back in August.
Those are powerful guys with a lot of experience under their belt.
Well,
sure.
You're not too shabby yourself because you are, without a doubt, you are the go-to man for Dolby Atmos, for remix of Dolby Atmos. And it's not just remix and remastering that you do. You also do albums. Mm-hmm. You do, documentaries. You produced the music track for the fabulous documentary Sweet Mickey for President. You're dabbling in everything Sonic.
Yeah. I am. I've been worded before, compared before as a Swiss Army knife, in a sense that it's a little bit of a so I do in film and music and television in different formats. So in 5.1 surround and Atmos, sometimes even in stereo. Still sometimes.
Still.
In stereo. Yeah. So but surround has been my thing.
What is it about surround? And particularly the Dolby Atmos now, as it's moving its way into the home video arena. Yeah. What is it about that speaks to you, that draws you to that particular aspect of sound?
Well, it's fun with an immersive surround, and when I say immersive, I mean Dolby Atmos and DTSX as well. They these different immersive formats. When you hear them, it's a lot of people just assume it's about helicopters flying over your head and flying around, and bumblebees zipping around, whatever. But really, it's just as important to me about the music and the ambiences and the backgrounds, for example. In a film like Hunger Games, we did that in Atmos, and that's a perfect example where they're out in the forest and you hear the trees and the leaves rustling and everything going around you.
And of course, you even hear the whoosh of the arrow as Katniss lets it go.
Yeah, you hear the arrows, exactly. And then also, when they announce over the dome of the game.
Yes.
So when that's happening, you're hearing, it's a perfect film for that kind of environment. Mm-hmm. So it's not about just the obvious sound effects that swoosh around. It's about, creating that ambience. And creating the element that pulls you in. It sucks you in.
And it's funny because I've been doing a lot of interviews during the awards campaigns now with all the below-the-line people, because I love my people below the line. And I've been talking to some of the sound designers for some of the films. And it's very interesting because so often, and even the Academy, they overlook the quieter films.
Yeah.
When you look at the nominations and the winners that come through, Mark is a perfect example with what he did with sound for Mad Max Fury Road.
Yes.
It is a loud film. Yeah. Very loud. It's nuanced, but it's loud. Mm-hmm. But then you did perfect example. A film like Age of Adeline is very quiet. Even in The November Man, there are some very quiet scenes. In Dracula, there is a lot of quiet there that relies on the music and the sound of the tapping of the long fingernails and things like that. People seem to overlook the nuance that comes out in sound.
Yeah, and it's when you think about things like, films like Dracula, for example, it's not it's not a whole lot of just obvious sound effects. It's more about that emotion of some of the air rushing through inside the Dracula's castle, for example, and you're hearing some of the winds that are kind of flowing through, and that's the stuff that pulls you in. It's not just the obvious, the gates clanging around you and whatnot.
No,
it's
I mean, one of
the
the great sonic scenes in Bram Stoker's Dracula, and we're talking about the one with Gary Oldman, people.
Yeah.
Is you have the three bloodsuckers from hell down in the pit.
Yeah.
And you can hear the moans and the movement of body parts, and that's a skill, and it's something that adds so much to the film.
Yeah, and that's in the music portion of that. For example, scenes like that with the music portion that's going to pull you in too. Mm-hmm. Having that immersive surround of music is going to open it up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it plays a part. It plays its own role, in a sense.
What led you to the Atmos world and the surround sound world?
Well, I started in the music industry way back when, a long time ago, and then moved into post-production for film in the mid-'90s, and doing film and music, really. And so I jumped in just at a time when DVD was just starting to come into the fray, and everything was being mixed in 5.1 surround at the time. So, and this was a time when obviously not a lot of films were done in 5.1 yet, and so it all had to fit onto a medium that's going to work for 5.1. So there was a huge, a large push to make everything 5.1 surround, and that had become the standard for years and years and years, and it's to this day.
Pretty much is.
Pretty much is, and and I remember, it's funny. I remember back in around 98, 99, some people in the industry would say, this 5.1 thing, it's never going to kick off. Nobody's going to care. Well, here we are. We're approaching 2017, and it's become this standard now, and so it's become a deliverable standard for filmmakers and the studios, as well as content creators that broadcast and streaming even. And I might even go so far. I just did a show recently as a music show for YouTube Red, and their standard deliverable is YouTube, and the standard deliverable is 5.1 surround. Even
wow!
For that. So the point is, it shows you that there's this standard that has been set in place, and it's stayed like that. Now, over the years, we've upped the ante a little bit, and then we'll try 6.1 surround or 7.1 surround. So you think, oh, okay, we're just going to keep adding numbers until But over time, we realized, well, what we need to do, and not me, but really just the industry as a whole, and Dolby especially, decided, well, let's make an immersive format that's not based off of a number, really, but off of a three-dimensional space. So immersive surround format. So let's go X, Y, meaning left and right and front and back, and Z going up. So when you create this space, now you have a wider space, and then you can create, now you're going upper channels, front and sides, and it gives you a lot more to work with. It gives you a lot more different spatial, going back to like Hunger Games again, different spatial things you can place in different areas. And now you can use that. Now the studios and the content creators are starting to use that as their default standard deliverable. And then you still have below that 5.1 and stereo, everything below that still. But I'm seeing a shift. I'm definitely seeing the shift, especially in the last 2 years. I mean, I've been super busy with it. So.
And I was going to say, it was 2 years ago, I was at the NAB convention in Vegas, and Dolby had their own domed, Dolby Atmos. Hear Dolby Atmos.
Yep.
And I did the whole presentation and went in there, and I was it was mind-boggling. It was stunning to really hear it, sounds being mixed perfectly. Because obviously they want to sell the equipment to everybody. So, they're going to give you, that's the place to be. I can't encourage enough filmmakers and broadcast and people in broadcasting to go to the National Association of Broadcasting Convention in Vegas, or they even have a smaller one in New York now, because you see this cutting edge technology before it becomes available. You know what's coming down the pike, but you get to experience it and play with it. Yes, they let you play with it.
Of course they do. Yeah. I play with it. Yeah, of course. That's,
I'm the daughter of a television engineer. Oh, I play with it.
You have to experiment
and they
move things around.
But you're going to have the optimum conditions to try everything out, and it gives you an idea of look and sound for your own projects. You might not be able to buy the $100,000 camera. you might not be able to get the Leica lens that you're looking at that is so fabulous. But it gives you a look that you can then try and emulate while you're saving up the money to buy that $100,000 camera.
Yeah, well, and film studios and filmmakers, indie features too. I mean, it doesn't stop. It's not all just a title tentpole features. You can
it's
do
everything.
indie features. You can do in Atmos, and in fact, I've been pushing for that recently, because especially if you have a horror film or some kind of something with a lot of spatial elements going on, it's perfect for Atmos. A lot of indie films would just blossom from that, and to create that is, I mean, I can do it in a way that's it's not that much. Really much more expensive, really, in a way. It's just how you plan it out. So the point is, it works for everybody. It's not just for the giant.
No, and I'm glad
Marvel
that
films.
I'm glad you bring that up, especially with indie films. And you mentioned horror, and right away I'm thinking, it's like I would have loved not a horror film, but a new genre for Ty West. He just did In a Valley of Violence with Ethan Hawke, John Travolta, and it's fabulous. But I'm just thinking, because it's a Western set in a small town, how great would that movie sound done in Atmos?
Yeah. See, there's possibilities out there. I mean, it is dependent on some films. I mean, obviously, certain shows, certain television shows like a series, would not, Big Bang Theory would be totally inappropriate for Atmos.
Right.
But a film, certain ones. I'll tell you one that comes to mind right now. Just an older film. This wasn't really indie, but it was the movie Saw, the original Saw. Mm-hmm. That film had so much ambient things going on when they're inside that room. In that encased in that room, you hear water running through the pipes around you, and you hear clanks going on outside all around you. That would have been perfect in Atmos. That's one of my dream ones to ever see back in Atmos somehow. That would be fantastic. But there's films like that that would be perfect, and that's in the indie films as well. You know?
I mean, because I just as you're saying that, I'm thinking of In a Valley of Violence, because there's a shootout in an old Western town, and you've got somebody to the far left, and the camera work has already set the stage, so you see where everything is in a 360. And to then have a 360 sound coming in with people on top as well, that's
enveloping. Yep.
That is absolutely okay.
Pulls you in.
Ty West, I want to see an Atmos remix on In a Valley of Violence. But now, when it comes to westerns, Hell or High Water. That's an Atmos.
And that one was more of a conform on my end. Really, it was just the encode on my end for that. That was my role on that, really. But that film, it's a good example of a film that sounds excellent. But then some of the other ones, obviously it's just it reaches out into music and feature film now in fact actually Hell or High Water. That one was actually done by somebody else that works with me as well. And some of the other films, it goes from you go from catalog films like Dracula, or a newer film, like a film like John Wick, for example. Or when I say newer, I mean fairly recent.
Oh, we're getting ready for music. John Wick 2.
That's true. And then that is coming. And then
wait, is it coming in Atmos?
I can't say. I don't know.
I
don't know.
I mean, I have the final new trailer and one sheet on my website. I have plastered it everywhere, and everyone is dying for this. He won't tell us. Okay.
But it also reached out, but now in television as well. We worked on Game of Thrones, and it was his first television series being done in Atmos as well. And that's a process of getting that show completed in all 6 seasons of that. And so that's helped build a push on that side, on the broadcast end of things for television. Now we're starting to see more television shows done in Atmos. I don't know. I can't say it's the exact result of Game of Thrones, but it's certainly plays a part in helping it push along.
Well, and
it's a slightly big show, so
just a little bit.
It's
just a little bit big.
Yeah. So now my next step is, of course, I want to see music really push through. That's one I want to see. That's one thing I'm personally trying to push, is the music side of things, whether it be music concerts, as well as restoration of music shows in general, but also not just for Blu-ray, but also for streaming. Streaming is another portion to this because you can put everything on Blu-ray, but we all know Blu-ray and DVD, especially Blu-ray, it's not going to be around forever. So streaming is where things are headed, and it's already at. So streaming Dolby Atmos is going to be the
see, I like the things, tangible things I can hold in my hand.
There is that. Yep.
Like this original VHS Ghostbusters that you then took and remastered and remixed into Dolby Atmos.
Yep. So that was
that had to be fun.
That was actually, that's a restoration and mix all in one. That's restoring from the original elements and pulling it into remixing it into a surround format, as well as mixing it in Atmos to give it an immersive format. So we're not just taking, we're literally going through all the original elements and some of these.
Yeah, let me ask you. I got to ask you this, Tim. You mentioned restoration because restoration is such a big thing with film anymore. People talk about, restoring films, and at TCM Film Festival a couple years ago, they restored Cabaret. I'm sorry, that film should not need restoration for the sound and the visual. The older films, the classics from the golden age that are, Marty Scorsese's very involved with film preservation and restoring the sound at the same time.
Yeah.
How challenging is that?
See, there's a threshold on restoring a film, on restoring soundtrack for a film, where it's very easy to go too far. It's very easy to go too far and make it sound too modern, if you will, or to this age at this point. We wanted to make it still have the integrity of the original soundtrack. We don't want to lose that. So that's the idea. When you restore a film, you go into, you got to take all the original elements and then try to, basically listening to the original mix and seeing what they intended to do. And had they had surround at the moment or Atmos at the moment, what might they have done at that point? And that's the way you have to look at it. And that's what we get involved. We get involved with the filmmakers and the crew involved. If unless it's a really old film, if they're still around,
right?
But or at least the studios, and just going along with them and realizing what can we do to make this still keep that integrity, because that's still the most important thing,
right?
Because it's a controversial subject. And if you go too far, if you make it sound gimmicky, then you lost your entire
and you will have
intention.
Everyone in the TCM audience just coming after you with rakes and torches. And
that's the last thing. So I go from it from a standpoint of more on the conservative side, making sure that it's definitely like the original as much as possible, but still filling in this other format, knowing that it'll work in these other formats, but no matter how you're hearing it, it's still going to be as close to the original as possible.
Well, and now I am so thrilled because joining us right now, Tim, we are welcoming the wonderful Harvey Mason. Hi, Harvey. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello.
And here with me today, also Harvey on Behind the Lens, is Tim HOOGENAKKER of Formosa Group, the sound mixer Dolby Atmos remix extraordinaire guy.
Hi, Harvey.
Nice. I love it.
Well, and he's done his own share of music remixing and mastering as well, so.
Yeah, he has. He definitely has.
But I have to congratulate you on Sing. This is, without a doubt, the best soundtrack compilation of the year.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. That's very, very nice. I appreciate it.
I am so in love, not only with the film, but it's the music. And the performances that you bring out, and this is also something right up Tim's alley too, with the remixing and mastering of sound. What you did, Taron Egerton singing "I'm Still Standing" by Elton John.
Right.
Oh my God!
Cool. Yeah, he's a pretty talented guy. He kind of makes me angry. He's so good.
I had because that's one of my all-time favorite Elton John songs. And the minute I heard him start belting that out, I smiled from beginning to end with every song you have in this film.
Yeah, well, thank you. I smiled for about 2 years working on it.
What went into, because you didn't just, it wasn't just a matter of securing films that were, as recorded by the artist. You actually worked with all of these, people. You worked with Jennifer Hudson. You worked with Taron. You worked with Reese Witherspoon. You worked with all of them and had them record all these, hits.
Yeah, well, that was the trick, was just trying to get them to all have their own kind of signature sound within the film, and all have songs that really fit their characters, and then bring them to life in a new way. You know, we wanted to give them fresh energy. It wasn't a case where we just wanted to have them singing original versions. We wanted them to have kind of their own style. So I got a chance to work with each one of them and really get to know them and know their characters, and then try and fit music around that.
How challenging is that to fit the music around the character?
It's not, I mean, it's tough, but it's not any more difficult than what I normally do when making records for artists. You know, you're taking the artist, you're taking their voice, and you're trying to find a song that showcases what they do, and also trying to tell the story that the audiences can relate to. You know, when you're recording, I don't know, Whitney Houston or Beyonce, you're doing the same thing. You're really figuring out where are they in their life, where are they in their journey of life, what is it that they can say that the audiences will relate to. And I'm doing the same thing on the film, just trying to really accentuate the emotional beats in the movie and the characters and the character journey.
Well, I mean, what you did with McCartney's Golden Slumber, I mean, that is a stunning arrangement.
Thank you. That was a tricky one. I definitely was cautious on that. It's such an incredible song and a classic copyright. You don't want to tamper with it too much, but we wanted to give it a fresh approach, and we wanted to give something to Jennifer that she could really make her own. So I was walking a fine line between respecting the original and trying to do something new and different.
Well, you know, when I first heard the first notes of her singing that, I mean, it gave me chills.
Yeah, me too.
It really did. You know, now, let me ask you, Harvey, because we've got Tim here today. When you are producing music, be it, you know, for something that you know is going to stream, be it for a film, do you consider the sound processing of like a Dolby 5.1 or a 7.1, or now the Dolby Atmos for sound?
Yes, we definitely do a bit of that, and when we're doing the production, I'm keeping in mind all the different formats and all the different usages. But more often than not, I'm really concentrating on making the arrangement and the production and the vocals sound amazing. And then as a final step, when we go to mix, I'll either mix different kinds of stems or different kind of balances so that I can hand them over to the dub stage so that they can, at that point, kind of determine what sounds best in Atmos and Dolby and all the different formats. But sometimes there are certain things that I'll carve out of my production, say, oh, this would be really cool if we had it in the, you know, the rear surrounds or flying over the middle, things like that. And those are notes that I'll give to the dub stage mixer.
And now let me ask, because Tim's sitting here. Now, if you get notes like that, do you listen to the notes?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I always go, when they say, hey, we are always thinking these strings could be used for upper channels, or, you know, these certain elements can be moved around certain places. I definitely listen because I know that that's what they had intended. So, yeah, and then some things work, some things don't. But for the most, I always try to listen to what they have intended.
Yeah, some things just don't work. You know, I'll have an idea, and then I'll get on the stage and it doesn't work, and I definitely rely on the expertise of the mixer because they're used to working in that medium, and I'm just used to left and right for the most part. So I give my ideas and recommendations, but it's definitely a collaboration between the mixer as well.
With the Dolby Atmos taking shape now, and other arenas coming into play down the pike, will you be expanding how you approach production of music and with film, and instead of just thinking in the left and right, but thinking up and down as well?
Yeah, I think we definitely, or for me as a music producer, I'm definitely conscious and aware of it. I don't know if it will totally change the way I make my music, but it'll definitely make me think outside the box. I can be a little bit more creative as to different elements and different instrumentation, but I love Dolby Atmos and surround, all the crazy kind of aspects that you can accomplish with mixing. It's just amazing, and it's so cool for music and effects and everything. I love it.
Well, and I look at some of the artists that you work with, Jennifer Hudson, first and foremost. I mean, her voice is custom made for whatever you want to do with it, I think.
Yeah, I guess we all probably say the same thing. We're very fortunate to have a voice like that in this movie. However you want to mix it or where you want to put it, it sounds good. But, part of the challenge was to really make her sound better than she ever has. I've been working with her for 10 years, and every time I step in the studio, my goal is the same thing. Okay, how can we beat what we did last time? How can we do something more memorable and more special? And with this particular performance, I think we accomplished something unique because she's really, really singing from the heart, really with a lot of emotion, somewhat understated. There's not a lot of belting notes and not a lot of fireworks vocally. It's just really, really from the heart. And I think that's what makes that performance really ring true, I think, to audiences.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of fireworks, you've got, some signature Katy Perry in the film as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good transition. Yeah, the Fireworks was a tough song, and it's really a range. It's got a lot of range, so Reese worked really, really hard on that. I was so impressed with just her work ethic and her intensity and just focus on making sure it was great and perfect. A lot of artists, singing artists that I work with will just want to go in the studio and just, sing it a couple of times. But Reese was intent on making it perfect. Like, Harvey, let me try it again. I can get this better. I can get that better. So she was really, really impressive and worked extremely hard.
And we all knew going in that she could sing. But
that's a tough song.
We didn't know she could sing like this.
Yeah, no, that's a great song, and she probably could have been a pop star if she started that earlier in her career, and that was her focus. I'm sure she could have done that. She's really talented in a lot of ways.
What in putting together, because you worked on Dreamgirls, now you've got Sing, Straight Outta Compton, The Help. You've got so many things under your belt in terms of the audio-visual dynamic combined. What is the most challenging aspect of coming into a film like Dreamgirls, like Sing, and trying to put together, your tracks and then coming up with arrangements that will fit the film and the artist?
There's two main issues in trying to do a big, huge musical undertaking like Dreamgirls or Sing or anything like that. And the first is trying to do arrangements that are fresh and contemporary and sound relevant, compared to what's going on at radio or, what people are listening to, and not messing up the original copyrights. I did The Wiz this year, so it's the same thing when you're doing songs that people love and they've known for 30, 40 years. You want to, freshen them up a little bit, but you don't want to make it so that when people hear them, they're like, oh, that's horrible, that's offensive what he did to that song. So that's the first problem. And then the other problem, or challenge, I'll say, is working with such a wide variety of cooks in the kitchen, if you like to call it that. You've got the director, you're trying to make sure you accomplish his vision. You've got the studio and the head of music at the studio. You've got usually 2 or 3 producers, and then you've got the cast, and you're working with an actress or an actor who is concerned about how the song sounds. So really trying to make sure you're able to keep all those people happy while still doing great work that I'm proud of. That's definitely a challenge.
Well, and I think with Sing, what you've done is, I've been watching Illumination Entertainment and what they've been bringing us with animated film, but you, with your work and with the music and Sing, you have now elevated Illumination into the next level. You have really, you have pushed them beyond.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because this film, it's all about the music. The animation is adorable. The voicing is perfect. Matthew McConaughey, there is no one who could have voiced Buster Moon but for Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, he is incredible.
But it's the music in this film. I mean, I have not only purchased one soundtrack already as soon as I came out of the screening seeing it. I purchased 2, the special edition that had 2 extra tracks on it, and the other one. So
well, thank you. I owe you. I think I owe you 2 or 3 cents. So thank you.
What is the greatest gift? I've got to ask. You've got your 6 Grammys. What is? And I'm sure that you aren't doing this for the accolades of having a little statue. So what is the greatest gift that music and music producing gives to you, Harvey?
For me, the greatest gift is when other people hear it and appreciate it, and it brings something to their day, whether that's some happiness or some excitement or just energy or uplifting feeling, or even if it's a sad song, if it does something to emotionally impact somebody, that's, a huge, huge satisfaction for me. I think I also want to, hopefully, maybe sound presumptuous, but I would like to leave something behind once I'm done with my career. It's something that lasts. If I can create 1 or 2 pieces of music that people listen to for the next 30 or 50 or 100 years, that would be amazing. But more than anything, I just do it because it's fun. I do it because I really, really enjoy making music. But I love having an impact on people, and without sounding corny, I like having an impact on the world. It's good to bring happiness and joy and art to the world.
Well, and I think that Sing couldn't have come out at a better time. I mean, it's already pulled in as the #2 film this holiday weekend at the box office, and I guarantee you it's because of the music and with what's been happening in the world, and even just the incidents over the past 2 weeks or so, losing George
Yeah.
Michael, and unknown as to what's going to happen with Carrie Fisher, and then losing Prince, and it's an album. It's a soundtrack like Sing that reminds the world of the joy that there is in life.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a journey, and I think the film represents the journey of a lot of people's lives. There's ups and downs and challenges and obstacles, and ultimately that's the good part about it, is going through all of it, whether the good or the bad, and coming out at the end of the tunnel, hopefully on the right side of things. But I think the film represents that, and the music hopefully helps accentuate that.
So I have to ask you, do you have a favorite track in the film?
Oh man, two of my favorites. I think one is Hallelujah, and it's strange because the director chose to erase all my music, which is hilarious. But I love that performance by Tori, and it comes at such a kind of poignant part in the film where everything's kind of teetering. So I think there's some amazing emotional payoff in that song. And then the Don't You Worry About a Thing is to me just such a kind of showstopper, a big grand finale type song. And we worked really hard on that song. I think we might have done 35 or 36 versions of that song. So for me, that one's gratifying to hear it come off and be pulled off in a finale kind of setting. So those are a couple of my favorites. I love Golden Slumber as well. That to me is really special. But those are a few of my highlights.
So do we have another film on the horizon?
Yes, I'm just started last week on Pitch Perfect 3. I did Pitch 1 and 2, and this new one is even more music, if you can believe that. There's now some live music involved instead of just a cappella stuff.
Okay.
I'm doing a Netflix series based on Motown music, which is really, really cool. So I got 2 or 3 other good things kind of coming on the back end of this one.
Well, Harvey, I can't thank you enough for joining me this morning. This has been a real treat. I am such a huge admirer of your work and what you've done, with various artists and tracks over the years. But, for my money, Sing is like the pinnacle of your soundtrack career. Let me tell you.
Thank you so much. It really means a lot that you appreciate all the work that went into it. And, it was me and it was a lot of other great people. And the one thing I'll also leave you with is this kind of film, and the soundtrack gives me the opportunity to work with some of the best musicians, the best composers, arrangers, orchestrators, conductors. I mean, being here in LA and being able to work on a film like this brings some amazing, talented people into my world, and I'm really lucky and thankful for that as well.
Did you record any of this down at Sony?
We did. Yes, we did record some at Sony. Some of it was at my place, and some of the bigger stuff was down there. So yeah.
Because I know Sony has some of the preeminent sound, recording rooms in the industry.
Yeah, and Fox. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Harvey, will you come back on the show again? I hope so.
I would love to. This is my kind of show. Are you kidding me?
Well, I will stay in touch with Diana and make sure that we get you back.
Thank you so much. Anytime, I would love to do it.
Oh, Harvey, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks to you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye. And that was the wonderful Harvey Mason Jr. He loves film and music the way you do.
Yeah, and I love how he wanted to make an impact at the even when someday when we all pass on, about leaving that impact of things that stay with people. That I admire that about him.
And you also are making an impact with what you do, because all of this will be a legacy that is left on.
You know what's funny about how...
Look, I'm sitting here with VHS copies. I don't throw anything away. So, decades from now, when I die and my brother has to come and clean out my house, there will be Dolby, there will be Atmos.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you do a mix, or when you do a feature, a soundtrack for a film or a TV show, whatever it may be, and you do the initial theatrical release, let's say, it has to go to a home entertainment version, whether it's going to be Blu-ray or streaming, but something's going to stay around that's going to last forever, literally, for however long it'll go. And so that's always something that's very important, is how that's going to track on from that point on. So there's one thing to do the theatrical run, which will run for however many months, but then after that it has to live for years and years and years and years, and that's just it's always something that's on the back of your mind. Don't make any mistakes because it's gonna be imprinted.
And then you're going to have to try and fix them later on.
Yep.
Now, perfect example here. I've got when our listeners, who are also a lot of our viewers, when you see the video of this particular show, you're going to see a mass of DVDs and Blu-rays here, and some of my I knew I'd knock stuff over. Some of my woebegone VHS for Ghostbusters and 1 and 2, the original, the ones that count. How do you approach? You take something like this. Say there was something that was more vintage than some of the other things that you've been working on. Are there defects that you have to correct?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, it's really funny when you get to a film later on, and then especially when you talk to the filmmakers, the original filmmakers, and they say, there's always been this big giant dropout in the mix, or the music always dips here at this point. It's always driven me crazy. This happens, and they'll say, we need to fix that. People notice that. It's little things like that. There'll be little nuances in a mix. They'll say, please, while we're here, let's correct that, because and they'll fix that type of stuff. Yeah, so it plays a part. Yeah.
So, are there any war stories that you can divulge?
I'll tell you. There's a film. So I can't say the name of it, but I'll tell you. There's a film. It's similar to the era of Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Now, it's a music film a long time ago from the 80s. Okay, and very large music film. Now, they did a mix. Somebody else, another facility, had done the mix at 5.1 surround mix, and they kind of made it into basically a large music video. And this show is based in the era of around the 50s and 60s. And then they basically made the mix very large and broad and huge, and just subwoofers everywhere. And it got really intense. And I see where they were going with it, but it wasn't really appropriate. I'm not cutting somebody down, but it's just the way it was, the way it turned out. So now what happens? The studio basically said, okay, we need to re-release this again. We're going to re-release this film again, but we're going to go back, still doing 5.1 surround, but we're going to do it in a way that's just a little bit more liking to the original. So what the producer did, and I'll never forget this, she handed me a VHS.
Okay.
She handed me the VHS, and she just said, you're going to do 5.1, but make it sound like that. Like, okay, I'll do that. And so I did. And it's 5.1, and it's a very, very conservative 5.1, but I basically kept it to the original of the original VHS. Literally, I loaded in the VHS, the track, and was A-Bing between the VHS and the new 5.1, making sure that, especially when it down mixes, the 5.1 down mixes to stereo, to make sure that they sounded almost identical to that point. But again, it's that threshold, it's that balance. You still got to make it 5.1. You just can't make stuff flying around everywhere, obviously. But it's that balance of that, so making sure that it worked in between. So that was always a fun story.
Do you get as much of that anymore today?
Well, most of the restorations on a lot of films have mostly been completed, really, by now, on a lot of the major titles. There are some titles, though, that will still restore. We'll still go back to some of the older elements, some older films, like a Ghostbusters type of thing. Go back, and because maybe when they did 5.1 in, let's say, 98 or 97, the converters weren't quite as good then. And it's just the technology's a little different. So now maybe we recapture the sound from the 35 millimeter mag and reload it in at a higher bit rate, and just going to sound better, just by that notion alone. It's going to be more, if anything, it's going to sound more like it should have sounded. So really we're going back to that. We're getting back to that original even deeper. So there is that element of it. So sometimes, it's just whether or not something needed to be redone, but most of the restorations have been completed for the most part.
Well, now you brought with you today from your personal collection this absolutely stunning Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Talk about this lovely little gem.
Yeah, so
hold it over.
Here.
Hold
so
it up for the camera to
knock
see.
down your other discs here, but this is the Tom Petty and Heartbreakers.
We can see it right
there. The live anthology.
Yes.
So this is a combination of so this has got vinyl on it, of course, but it's also got the Blu-ray discs of concerts, as well as Blu-ray disc of 400 Days documentary, which I worked on, and then also just live shows and just it's just a conglomeration of all sorts of live projects on here. And so it's a many people that put this together.
Right.
It's not just me. There's many people that had made this, and so this is the kind of thing you would put together that would, it's a restoration in a sense of a lot of older music. A lot of shouldn't say older music, but things are recorded from a long time ago, as well as but at the same time keeping some of the integrity of how it's supposed to stay, and printing things onto LP, of course, as well, onto vinyl. I mean, so yeah, it's interesting. It's it's fun when on music, especially older music titles. Sometimes on the mastering side of things, on a stereo music, on an album, for example, it might have been filtered in a way so that it would fit on vinyl. A lot of times, what people don't realize is a lot of the low frequencies are rolled off a little bit so that it'll fit on vinyl. So you can actually literally fit more music on a vinyl if you have less of that, if you have it rolled off. The problem is it sounds just a slight bit thinner that way. So sometimes when you restore, if you restore an older title before it went to vinyl, of course, then, or older title, I mean older music, an album before it went to vinyl, then you now can get some of that low end, those low frequencies back in, for example. I'm not saying specifically of Tom Petty, but just music in general. In general, you can do that. So you realize, oh, we don't have those limitations anymore. So now I don't have to worry about that as much anymore. Now I can worry about what's going to be, quality for streaming and before, unfortunately, before it gets too highly compressed on streaming.
Right.
So there's that. But yeah, those different aspects.
So how beneficial is it? Because you come from a music background.
Oh yeah.
How beneficial is that to you with the work that you now do, especially if it's a film like a Pitch Perfect 1 or 2, or something that, and virtually every film has music in it, but the ones that are more music heavy, and or that are provided for the ambient underscore, where nuance is needed. Does your music background and your musicality help you?
Oh yeah.
In that mix process?
Oh, for sure. I started off my boot camp, if you will.
Your boot camp?
My
music,
boot camp.
Oh,
my music boot camp.
Music boot camp.
My
okay.
music boot camp literally was Prince's Paisley Park. I worked at Paisley Park for about 3 years in the mid '90s, and that was I see it's funny. I say it's 3 years, but it's really I always say it's kind of like dog years. Because I lived there, I slept there, I ate there, I sometimes did crudely my laundry there and showered there. I mean, I practically lived there. My family didn't see me for many years there. And it's just because I was working very hard. It was my boot camp, but I mean that in a very respectful way because I learned so much from that. And because we would work on albums, of course, but also they had a 10,000 square foot soundstage in the back where they would do shoots and film shoots and whatnot, and just seeing how that's all created, and so it helped build on the music side to see where some of this stuff is coming from and knowing the background of some of these projects and being part of those. And so now when I get into the post-production side of things, of course, music is my background, so I'm always hearing things. I do hear things musically quite often. And how that pertains to me now, especially with Atmos now. That's why I love enveloping music, and I love enveloping, especially score, music score with an orchestra. And you can move different elements around and fill things in a space, but also knowing how it's going to work in every element, whether you hear it on your iPhone or on Blu-ray, and it definitely takes a path. Music does with me.
Now I'm glad you mentioned like orchestra, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm just wondering, how much fun would it be for you, and how do you think it would sound to take a Max Steiner or Bernard Herrmann score and do it in a Dolby Atmos?
Yeah, well, and that's thing, and there are, as far as music, there are currently with Dolby Atmos, there's a lot of music titles that are out, but it's mostly classical and orchestral scores at this point. There's not a lot of mainstream music, out there. So orchestral, especially a live classical score, it sounds fantastic in Atmos, because if you have in a large, a very large room, a large facility, arena, where you have basically all these different audience microphones that you've recorded with, along with what's recording the actual orchestra itself. Now you have that much more space to create.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can create different audience microphones in the upper channels and on the sides, and also you're getting the envelopment of the audience as well. You know, you're hearing the audience around you, and it's it's one of those things where unfortunately on a radio show I wish I could show you, but I can't hear. But but when you hear it, you realize, wow, this is very enveloping. Again, it pulls you in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it makes it makes sense. Score, music, and let me backtrack on film for a moment. Music for a film, especially when it's an orchestral score, that's sometimes easier to go into an Atmos or immersive kind of environment. When you get a pop song or drums banging around in a feature film, it's not really appropriate to be putting those in upper channels, and it's just because it's going to take your attention away. So, but when you have more of a warm score with pads and strings and whatnot, and I say pads more of an electronic sense, but all these elements now can be placed in different areas, and it just fills. You know, I'm saying the word "fill in" a lot, but it's true. It's what
That's
it's doing.
what it does. It fills in.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing when I watch films, or I go back and I watch films that I've seen hundreds of times, that from the 70s, the 60s, even older ones, and then I hear them when they're remastered. Well, even something like Expendables 3, which I've heard it in the theater, and it was not done. It wasn't projected sonically in Dolby Atmos in the screening room that it was at. Now to go back and hear it in the home video version in the Dolby Atmos, huge difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a huge, it makes a big spatial difference. And Expendables 3 was a good example of a film where they did do a theatrical native Atmos release for the theatrical cut. But this director's cut has a lot more footage. It's not just a few more minutes. It's a massive amount.
A lot.
The thing was, the extended portions were never in Atmos. So I had to, make these new portions, or many, many, many scenes, and make those into Atmos, as well as fitting into what's already been in Atmos. And so it sounds like a Frankenstein, but I didn't want it to be you have to make it smooth, and you have to make it flow. And then you're also listening to what they originally did on their Atmos portion on the theatrical side, and then me matching that to make sure I'm following the integrity of what they did. Like, they would have done this had they carried this scene 10 minutes longer, like they did.
I was just going to ask you that based on your description there. You do have to match it up.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of matching in my job. There's a lot of it. It's a creative and matching. It's like matching, because I want to make sure I keep to what they were
creative
intending.
And matching.
It really is. It's a full balance. It truly is that. It's half of my job is matching what was there and then making it work creatively.
Do you prefer to start from scratch with the tracks to do an Atmos mix, or do you like coming in behind and then doing the remixing and remastering for Atmos?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'd much rather start with the original mix. Of course, that's always the best way. That'd be considered a native mix, where you take basically you're taking what they mixed on the dub stage and putting it on my dub stage, literally the exact same Pro Tools sessions and all that, and just basically retooling it to make sure certain things will now work in Atmos. And there's ways of doing that, and that is definitely much more preferred, because you have way more control.
Right.
Much more control, as opposed to the other way would be getting a film where I have stems, and the stems, especially if the stems are broken out in very little elements, just like 3 stems: dialogue, music, effects. And maybe that third effects would be just dialogue, Foley and backgrounds and effects tied together, and then you're limited. Because there's certain things, for example, if I have backgrounds and Foley tied together, well, I can't really push, if I want some air to be lifted up, well, now I have a horse galloping also that's tied in with those effects. That wouldn't be appropriate to move those up into the side. I only want the winds. You know what I mean? So that's why that's the limitations there. So that's why I always try to do it natively if possible. Or if I am going to get stems, I'm going to try to get them as wide meaning as many separated elements as I can get. And a lot of times that means going back to the filmmakers and to the crew and getting those elements separated as well. Because just having all that separation is key.
What has been with all the films that you've done, with the Atmos remix, what has been the most gratifying?
Which title has been the most gratifying?
Yeah.
okay, this is going to sound funny.
Either due to ease of it, or the challenges that you overcame to put together a fabulous sounding film.
Well, okay, well, actually, a couple of there's two of them. Well, so Hunger Games is probably the one that's the most gratifying one, I think. Just because, again, it's that space of having one out in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much movement. I worked closely with Lon Bender, who's a sound supervisor, also with Formosa.
I know Lon.
You know Lon. See, yeah, so I worked closely with him to make sure, this is all going to work correctly. And back when the film was first released a long time ago on Blu-ray, we actually did a home theater mix with the crew back then, with the whole entire crew. And then now we've used that and retooled that for Atmos now. And it's that one I'm very proud of. I mean, when you get the tracker jacker scene when the bees are coming around, I mean, that's just, it's perfect. It's a perfect movie for Atmos. The other one that sticks with me, by the way, is, oddly enough, Sausage Party. That film, it's a silly film. It's a silly, but I tell you, it's for Atmos, it's a playground.
Oh yeah.
It's a ridiculous playground. So you got two extremes. You got Hunger Games, which is filling in. It's a lot of ambiences and backgrounds, and you're filling in music, pulled that emotion in with you. Mm-hmm. But then you got the other flip side of something like Sausage Party, which just it's kind of like over the top. It's ridiculous on on purpose.
Yeah.
So they purposely do that. And so that's the kind of thing. It's not meant to be taken too seriously, but it's a playground in that. So that those are kind of two extremes where you have a film, I did the encode for Age of Adeline. Mm-hmm. Now that one, I didn't actually do the Atmos mix per se on that. I just did the encode for it. But I'm hearing that and doing it for home. And that movie is a perfect example of a film where the music, it's not a big, wide open action film.
No, it's
There's
not.
only a
It's very
few areas,
quiet.
like when she gets in a car wreck. There's a car wreck that happens, and things like that. When that happens, it's amazing in Atmos. Mm-hmm. And those are the original mixers that did that in Atmos, and it sounds beautiful. It sounds perfect. But that's a perfect example of a film where it's just not everything is going on, and sometimes those upper channels are completely digital black. And but when it comes in force. Mm-hmm. So it's that perfect dynamic you get. And so that it's every film, and again, we're tailoring all this to all these different films. Age of Adeline, Hunger Games, and Sausage Party are three completely different types of movies.
Different.
I mean, for better or worse, it is. They really are different. So you have to look at it. We have to adapt to what I'm doing to each one.
I mean, another one that's beautiful that sonically is Risen.
Yeah. That was a fun Atmos mix. That was a lot. That was a lot of music and backgrounds on that one.
Very
for
much so.
Sure,
it's
on the Atmos mix of that. Yeah.
So now, now the big question becomes: is everybody hears us talk about Atmos and remixing for home, for all these DVDs and Blu-rays and streaming?
Yeah.
Now the next question comes: how does the home listen? How does the home viewer benefit from this great technology and this great sound?
Well, there are as of now, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but right now there's many home theater systems, receivers that are handling Dolby Atmos with let me start from the beginning. Basically, for example, you pick some of these titles, like Hunger Games, for example, it'll have a Dolby True HD encode on it, and that fits on the Blu-ray disc. And for a lot of the 4K and ultra high def discs, we'll have this. I have a Blu-ray 4K ultra high def, but a Dolby True HD encode. And what that does is that's got the Dolby Atmos mix on that encode, so that when you put it in your Blu-ray player and you have Atmos, it will decode through your receiver into your Atmos system, your speaker. So that means you'd have to, of course, have the receiver, but then also beyond a 5.1 system. Sometimes people do a 5.1 with 4 uppers, or a full 7.1 and 4 uppers. I say 7.1 because it's kind of around here.
Yes.
And so I'm always using these gestures. And then and so that's the thing. And then there's also something that's come out recently where it's a sound bar. They have a sound bar, which I got to tell you, when I first heard it, I was like, this is going to be cheesy when I first thought about it. But but then when I heard it, I realized no, it uses the reflections of your room. It tunes. In fact, it tunes to the reflections of your room.
Because my condo, my living room is too small to go and put in speakers everywhere and pulsate the ceiling and the walls and annoy the heck out of my neighbors, which I really wouldn't care about. But if it gave me good sound. But
Yeah.
I myself have been curious about the sound bar and have done no investigation as yet into that.
I was more impressed than it was surprising to me that it was as good as it was. It really is. I mean, it's using the reflections of the room around you and above you. We did a press event a few months back where we had content creators, filmmakers and
the one over at Sony.
No, we had mine. Actually, we had one over
yours.
in Formosa in Santa Monica, and we had one where I was just literally showcasing a bunch of Atmos titles, and we played, of course, in my dub stage with Atmos. But then also we had another room, kind of like this kind of a room, like more of a square room with a sound bar set up in it, so that you can hear how it would react and how it will fit as if it's a living room. The cool thing was watching the content creators, these producers, come in and they listen to a show, and they're literally turning around going, I'm hearing surrounds. It's coming behind me, and you'd think it'd be gimmicky, but it really wasn't. They, Dolby figured it out so that it tunes correctly to that room. There's a whole setup involved when you tune it. So you use that. So it's more impressive
than
I thought it would be. I had an eyebrow up on that. I was like, wow. Okay.
So I wouldn't need to buy additional speakers or anything. Just hook it right up to my
it's a
DVD
sound bar.
player.
Yeah, you put a sound bar, and I mean they're big. They're the one I was used as a Yamaha. I don't remember the model,
Well,
but
obviously.
but a lot of them they're dynamic. They have to be pretty big.
Okay.
Because you have to. I mean, the one I saw, the Yamaha one, it has like 40 little small speakers.
Okay, the
in it.
cat's
It's
maybe
ridiculous.
moving out.
Yeah, move the cat out because the cat's gonna freak out when it hears that. But yeah. So there's the end viewer of that. So there's again, if you have a home theater system with the speakers, but also even if you have a 5.1 system, you also have what's called upfiring, and that's the front left and right channels and the rear surround channels where you have speakers on top that aim and reflect off the ceiling. And again, it takes a tuning process to make that work, but it gives you Atmos. I mean, it's not the same as being direct. There's never going to be the same as having it direct speakers, of course. Of course it won't be exactly, but it's impressive. Dolby, the guys at Dolby have figured out a way to make that work as closely as possible.
See, now you're kind of convincing me that I need to go get a sound bar for all. For all the films, and now with screening, they don't want to schedule. And I understand it. Distributors don't want to spend the money on these smaller indies or films to, rent screening rooms or send DVDs or Blu-rays out. So they stream everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with as much as it is, I already have to hook up my laptop to the TV because I want to see the picture on a much bigger screen.
Yeah.
Because I'm reviewing a film, I'm analyzing it, but I'm also listening to the sound design.
Yeah.
So obviously,
and with streaming is where it's. That's now that you can stream this and it's working. I mean, they're active. Like Comcast Video on Demand is streaming Atmos, and there are other over-the-top streaming services like all those other ones you buy, the a la carte services you can get that that stream all these Atmos content, and it's happening. And as our industry, as our broadband gets better and better, there's gonna be more of that, and that way everybody hears it downstream too. So even if you don't have Atmos, you can hear it in 5.1 in stereo still, exactly as you would have heard it in the first place, really. So it all flows downstream, and you can hear. So if you have Atmos, great. If you don't, well, then you'll hear the 5.1 version. Yeah.
And of course, the more there is, the more work there is for you over at Formosa Group.
Yeah, I mean it's been keeping me pretty busy. Yeah, it's been keeping me very busy.
Are there any upcoming titles that you're allowed to talk about?
See, that's the problem on my side of things. I can't say anything about them until they're released. But there's a lot. There's a lot of music stuff.
Really, as in music videos, music compilations.
Yes.
There's
a lot of music stuff.
To all of the above.
There's a lot of music stuff that's brewing, and that's what I'm really excited
about. What, you're giving us the minute mark? That's really rude of you, Brian. He's being just. That's not fair. That's not fair. So if there's one film besides The Hunger Games or Sausage Party that you would encourage people to go out and buy or stream in Atmos to hear the quality of it.
It's not one that I worked on, but Gravity and Atmos. Yeah, I didn't touch it. I've never touched the film, but it that sounds amazing.
Okay, what about Atmos. One that you worked on?
That's a hard question to ask me. That's really hard. It's hard to go. Oh, it's all my little babies. Like, which one would be the best? I I mean, that's,
Well, no, we know you love them all, but if you had, if people wanted to get a good example,
John Wick.
John Wick.
Probably John Wick is a good one. Yeah.
Well, and
Yeah.
perfect timing since John Wick 2 is
Yeah.
coming out.
Yeah.
All right, we've got 6 seconds. Tim HOOGENAKKER, thank you so much for being here. Harvey Mason Jr., thank you. That is it for Behind the Lens in 2016. You will come back?
Yes, absolutely.
You will come
Yeah.
back. And Harvey will come back. And I'll be back on January 9th. Until then, this is Debbie Elias, Behind the Lens.